Tonight, the world is learning more about a dramatic rescue from Syria and Canada's crucial role in this international effort to save lives. Civil defense volunteers, known as the White Helmets, were in deadly jeopardy. Government forces were closing in on them and their families in the country's southwest corner. Last night, 422 people crossed into Israel with help from Israeli forces. They were loaded onto waiting buses and taken to refuge in Jordan, but many others weren't able to make that crossing, and tonight their fate is up in the air. The CBC's Murray Brewster was first to report on Canada's part in making it all happen, and he begins our coverage.
It unfolded under the cover of darkness and an extraordinary cloak of international secrecy. The Israeli military shepherding hundreds of Syrian first responders and their families through the border and on to neighboring Jordan. A multinational mission to rescue the rescuers. The White Helmets forced to flee the onslaught of forces loyal to Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad. Throughout Syria's brutal civil war, the White Helmets have clawed through the ruins for survivors of airstrikes and shellings. They've borne witness to atrocities, and for that they say they have been marked for death by the regime. Sources tell CBC News a Canadian diplomat in the region red-flagged their imminent danger, and it went all of the way to the top of the political chain as NATO leaders met earlier this month. Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland made an impassioned plea to her counterparts, saying Western countries had a moral obligation to act. As the summit in Helsinki held the world's attention, rescue plans were coming together. But some White Helmets were torn between leaving and staying.
I think a lot of White Helmets will stay till the end. They really have sacrificed too much. Know that it is them and them only who will be there to rescue the civilians that are invariably going to be trapped, unsafe, and at the hands of a very cruel regime as it moves forward in taking territory back.
At last count, 422 White Helmet volunteers and their families made it out. 2 other groups did not. Roughly 800 are still trapped and moving within Syria. Their fate remains unknown.
Murray, it's great to get that backstory on how the rescue came about. What else did Canada do to seal the deal?
Well, Canada has promised to take in 50 of the White Helmet volunteers and their families. Now, that could amount to about 250 people. However, as we've noted in our report, there are fewer White Helmets that got out than expected, so that Canadian number could very well drop. One of the things that Canada has promised Jordan is that the White Helmets will not remain in Jordan for very long, and that they will be processed quickly and brought to Canada and to Germany and to the United Kingdom. Now, Canadian officials have said that they're going to be setting up security screening, similar to what they did for the 40,000 Syrian refugees that came through the system and were resettled in Canada.
But let me quickly ask you about that, because you talk about how this processing is going to happen quickly. There's already been a backlash on social media, for example, some of it fairly ugly about, some are saying a security risk posed by the White Helmets coming to Canada. How effective will these security checks be?
Well, the security checks that went through last time were very stringent, and the federal government insists they're going to be just as stringent this time. Much of the accusations directed against the White Helmets are the product of a Russian disinformation campaign. They are labeled as terrorists by both the Assad regime and the Russian government for publicizing all of the atrocities that have taken place in Syria.
All right, Murray, thank you.
You're welcome.